On May 5, 2026, the New York State Capitol in Albany paused to recognize a remarkable milestone. Jamel Holder was named a Woman of Distinction, with a state senator officially declaring the day Mrs. Jamel Holder Day. Inside the Senate chamber, her name was read into the official legislative record. This was a formal, state-level acknowledgement of a lifelong commitment to the public. But there is a common misunderstanding about community service. We tend to think that empathy is enough to fix a broken system. Caring about a community, however, doesn't automatically solve the incredibly complex logistics of actually helping people survive. If you want to see what effective service looks like, look at the math. This chart tracks her tangible output. Over a decade, Mel successfully guided 91 families out of homelessness and into permanent housing. In a single Thanksgiving drive, she fed 200 households. And in 2025, she launched an entirely new company to solve a critical healthcare gap. True community service is an act of engineering. It requires taking raw emotional compassion and building it into reliable, hard infrastructure. Mel's understanding of that infrastructure began on the front lines. For over 10 years, she worked directly with families experiencing homelessness at a Salvation Army shelter in Queens. This diagram shows the overlapping challenges those families face. Housing insecurity rarely exists in a vacuum. It intersects directly with financial hardship and health concerns. Handing someone a temporary resource fails without comprehensive case management to navigate all of these crises at once. When she relocated to Middletown, New York, she applied that same hands-on approach to a different crisis: recruiting and training foster parents. Caring for children who have experienced trauma carries a heavy emotional toll for the caregivers. Recognizing that these parents were burning out, Mel organized and facilitated dedicated support groups to sustain the families doing the hardest work. Working directly with people in crisis provides exactly the blueprint needed to spot where a community's safety net is failing. Today, Mel serves as office administrator and social services coordinator at the Salvation Army in Middletown. In this role, she helped lead the Feeding Orange County Coalition, coordinating a Thanksgiving drive that successfully distributed meals to over 200 local families. The distribution method she implemented is what matters here. Instead of forcing people to stand in a standard charity line for a pre-packed box, Mel transformed the community space into a walk-through grocery store. Allowing attendees to browse and select their own proteins, canned goods, and fresh vegetables strips away the stigma of asking for help. The simple act of choice preserves human dignity. Running an effective social program requires strict, dependable logistics with an intentional respect for the individual. Through her years of coordinating care, Mel identified a massive blind spot in the system. A person can have the best doctors available, but if they lack reliable transportation, their access to healthcare completely collapses. This is where non-emergency medical transportation, or NEMT, comes in. Seniors, patients with mobility challenges, and individuals managing chronic conditions rely entirely on these specialized rides to reach dialysis, physical therapy, and routine checkups. This flowchart illustrates the immediate danger of transportation barriers. Missing a single ride leads directly to a missed appointment. That delays critical care, which inevitably forces a worsening health outcome. Mel stepped out of the nonprofit sector and co-founded SwiftAid Transport in 2025. She built a business specifically designed to interrupt this cycle and reroute patients back to reliable healthcare access. By starting a targeted medical transport company, she turned temporary, reactive community relief into proactive, permanent infrastructure. When we look back at her local Distinguished Service Award from Orange County and the New York State Senate Proclamation, their true purpose becomes clear. A legislative proclamation functions as a formal document that records a citizen's systemic contributions within the public historical record. Public honors do not create a legacy. They merely document a legacy of work that has already been in motion for years. Mel Holder approaches problems holistically because her own life is multi-layered. She is a mother, a woman of faith, an advocate, and an entrepreneur, and she brings all of those perspectives to every gap she tries to fill. The path from shelter worker to program coordinator, and finally to company founder, traces the practical logic of social architecture. A good heart and deep compassion are what begin the vital work of community healing.